A very good morning, students. Welcome back to today's class on human capital management. In the last class, in the previous class, we discussed regarding the evolution of organized labor. That's where we happened to stop our lecture yesterday. So let us again look at the definition of organized labor. What does organized labor mean? So when we look at the definition of organized labor, it means an association of workers, right? And this particular association of workers in India, we call it as trade union, not just in India, even other parts of the world also. This is a word called trade union or union. Union or trade union represents this particular evolution of organized labor in our country. So in today's class, we shall see what are the various phases of development. Okay, what are the various phases of development of organized labor that we shall. So we discussed regarding the evolution. So in today's class, we shall start off with the various phases of organized labor. So the first phase of unionism or the first phase of organized labor is from 1950s to 1960s. As all of you know, we became independent as a country on August 15, 1947. But we became recognized as a nation on January 26, 1950. That's when we are being recognized by the rest of the world as an independent country, because on that particular day we declared ourselves as a republic, right? We declared ourselves as republic. That's the reason when you look at the passport says Republic of India. It does not simply say India, it says Republic of India. So the word republic has got a very serious connotation here. So republic means that particular government which is democratic in nature, run by the people, for the people, and to the people. So in this particular first phase of unionism, when we look from 1950 to 66, till then we were under the Britishers' rule. Industrialization in India started in 1850s, right? Small industries were started when Britishers came here. As I told you, in the eastern coast, they first entered between 1600 to 1700. They entered into this particular port called Masolipatnam, which is Machilipatnam. And then when they entered there, they started establishing small manufacturing units. But these are not industries. These are not industries. These are small manufacturing units. Later, industrialization at a large scale, like big companies and all, it started in 1850s. Right? Parallelly, Indian businessmen like Birlas, like Tatas, they also entered into the business around the same time. All right. So industries like railway started, and when the first and foremost industries that were started in India were jute mills, cotton mills, and textile mills. These particular mills were the first industries that happened to come. Apart from this particular in organized way, in unorganized way, we had this mining sector going on, and then we have this particular plantation sector, especially tea, coffee, rubber. In this particular areas, we had unorganized labor, right? So since we were ruled by Britishers, unorganized sector, they were not treated as labor. They were treated as slaves. Okay, they did not count as labor. They were treated as slaves. But the situation started changing after we became independent. So when we became independent, we were at a very bad stage because we had just survived a famine which killed lakhs of people, and you know we were a newborn nation. So in that particular time period from 1950 to 1960, which covers three 5-year plans. It covers first 5-year plan from 1951 to 56, second 5-year plan from 56 to 61, and third 5-year plan from 61 to 66. Now this particular time period, 51 to 66, this particular time period, the major focus was on building the nation. Since the major focus was on building the nation, this phase of unionism or this particular phase of trade unionism was also driven by nationalism. We had this particular patriotic feeling. So people who were working in the organizations, they thought we are working for the country. We are trying to build our country. So this was the strong feeling that ran across the trade unions. We are trying to build our independent India. We have to make India great, right? So because this particular patriotic feelings were there. And for that reason, there were no strikes at that particular time. People did not resort to strike. People did not resort to Gharao or any of these particular things, right? And then there was no friction between the management and the organization, or between the labor and the management. There were no major disturbances, right? Major disturbances which called up for a rapid strike or which called for all India strikes. No such things did not happen. Why these particular things did not happen? These things did not happen because everybody was driven by this patriotic feeling, right? And in spite of that, organization, I mean, the government itself has made certain progress. Government itself, we started achieving the GDP growth rate. I mean, especially in the manufacturing sector, the growth rate in the manufacturing sector was 7.6%. Okay, annual, I mean, industrial production increased at an average annual rate of 7.7%. It was really, really very, very good. Right? Nowadays, people say 70 years, nothing happened in the country. Today, India is not born in 2014 or 2015. India was born in 1950s, 1940s. So much was made in this particular time. So that happened then. And later, during this first phase of unionism, government also wanted to include management in taking decisions. While taking any key and strategic decisions, they also wanted to include management. So, as a part of that, through certain legislations, government has legislated work committees in the year 1947. And later in 1958, by passing certain laws in the parliament, they introduced Joint Management Councils, JMC, Joint Management Councils in the year 1958. Right, but unfortunately, these particular responses from the government in form of works committee or joint management council, it received a lukewarm response. It was not, given more importance. It just received a lukewarm response. And then we move to 1960s to 1979. So the first 3 years were without any disturbances. Next, disturbances started coming here. So 1967 to 1969, we had only annual plans. Why we had annual plans? We had two major wars. We had war with, we had war with Pakistan, and then we had a war with China. And when we fought with Pakistan, we liberated Bangladesh from Pakistan, and we created a new country called as Bangladesh. At those days, Pakistan was divided into East Pakistan and West Pakistan. East Pakistan is what we today call as Bangladesh. West Pakistan is the real Pakistan. So we liberated this particular because East Pakistan, the official language is Bangla, whereas in West Pakistan, official language is Urdu. So because of these cultural differences and cultural identities, these people, they wanted to have a separate country, and India helped that particular country, and then a new country was born among our neighbor called as Bangladesh at that particular time. But the war with China, whatever war we had with China in 1967, we had this particular war with China. That particular war with China, we were not able to succeed. Okay, it was not that we lost, it is not that we won. We neither did we lose, neither did we win. So the outcome was neutral. Whereas the outcome when we fought with Pakistan, the outcome was positive. We won the war. We defeated Pakistan and we won the war. But in case of China, they made certain, they occupied a few of our land, but again we happened to throw them back. So that particular thing we cannot say as like win, or we don't say it as lost. We can say it as that neither we lost. We happen to protect ourselves. That's what. Because of these particular things, industrial production was impacted. Industrial production was impacted majorly during this particular time. But we also, after recovering from the war, we had two major 5-year plans. the fourth 5-year plan from 1969 to 74, and the fifth 5-year plan from 1974 to 1979. These two 5-year plans we have. At this particular time, during the second phase of trade unionism, now slowly dissension started occurring at the end of this particular second phase between within the capital and the labor, right? And then the labor management relationship slowly started turning into an decentralized bargaining mode. Okay, so here what happened at this particular time is the people started asserting for their rights. The labor started asserting their rights because around this particular time we happened to invite large and heavy investments, and we started setting up these big companies like steel plants. We started setting up power plants. We started setting up chemical plants. We started setting up, and most of these particular plants was set up with the help of technology from Russia, Germany, and United States, UK, Russia, Germany, and as well as in some cases from Japan. Okay, from these particular countries, with the technological assistance of these particular countries, we started building this particular big giant organizations, fertilizer plants, chemical plants, and power plants, steel plants, like this particular. So when these investments were going on, labor also said, when you are making so much of investments in building these particular organizations, now why don't you take care of us also? Why don't you raise our quality of work life also? So collective bargaining was given an importance at this particular time, and one more concept evolved at this particular time that's called workers' participation management. When joint management councils were made and works committee were made in the first time from 1950s to 50s to 60s, it did not succeed because of certain reasons. Because people know they were having this patriotic fever. Okay, so they did not focus on much. But later, when we had this particular wars and the disturbances, and then heavy investments coming from technological assistance coming from the foreign countries, and government making heavy investments and all, now the people started thinking now it is the time for us to raise our voice, to assert our rights, and to improve our quality of life. Right. So in light of that, in government organizations, government started favoring concept like workers participation. So these works committees, joint management council, shop floor at the shop floor level, work committees and all. So they started springing up into life. Right. So to that particular extent, the quality of life in this particular time started improving also. Now, government started focusing focusing on not only providing statutory welfare measures, but it also started focusing on providing non-statutory welfare measures, also, like building schools for their children, like constructing homes for them, waters, schools, right, water facility, transportation facility. So, like this, government started providing number of facilities to improve the quality of life. The third phase of unionism is from 1980 to 1991. Right, 1977 to 79. Again, we had this emergency, and later elections were held in the year 1989. Janata Party won with thumping majority, and Indira Gandhi purchased all these MLAs again from Janata Party, and she again claimed her stake, and she became prime minister again in the year 1980. She again came back as the prime minister of India. Okay, during this particular time, between 1980 to 85, we had sixth 5-year plan. 85 to 90 is seventh 5-year plan, and from 90 to 92, because of major macroeconomic disturbances in the economy, we had two annual plans. In this particular time, this time was very turbulent time. No, this time was very turbulent because we had many cultural and socio-economic problems that were going. We had the rise of terrorism in the state like Punjab, and to contain that particular terrorism, to prevent that particular terrorism from spilling into the other areas, because the state of Punjab, they were calling for a separate country. They said we don't want to be with Pakistan, we don't want to be with India, we want to form a separate country. And similarly, back in the South India also, the Tamil movement started. And in Sri Lanka, these Tamil people, they became militants and they formed an organization called LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. And these people, they started saying, we also want to become a separate country, right? So these things were at height. And to prevent these things from disturbing other parts of India, she used brutal force. She sent Indian army into the Golden Temple, which is the most sacred place for the Sikh people. And when she sent this particular Indian army into the Golden Temple, the Sikh people were very deeply offended. And in October 24, 1984, these people, they killed Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister. During this particular time, because of we had emergency and this particular sort of terrorism things and all start happening in the other parts of the world, the labor movement also started affecting. Now what happened, look at this second paragraph. What happened is we had a massive public sector strike in Bangalore during 1980, 1991, 81. We had a massive public strike. Now this particular organization is called first. What are the organization? HMT, right? HMT is nothing but Hindustan Machine Tools. Similarly, HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, ECI, Electronics Corporation of India, ITI, Indian Telephone Industries. These are giant public sector organizations. Those days, these companies are all almost called as Maharatna companies, very profit earning companies and very big giant companies. Now, these people called for an indefinite strike in Bangalore, right? And this particular event did not stop there. It started spreading into other parts of the country also. So this looking at this particular strike, now people in Mumbai, they also started going on a strike. They wanted to sort out this wage and bonus issue. Okay, and soon this particular strike became one of the longest strike in the history of the post-independence India. It became one of the longest strike. And the textile strike that it ended, which started in 1981, it has almost taken 2 years to prevent this particular strike. So 1983 is when this particular strike stopped, and government has agreed to most of their particular demands. And these people also, since this particular strike is also ruining their lives, they also complained with whatever government was giving to them. Nothing. So normalization started prevailing. Okay. And around the same time, we had major industrialization happening between Mumbai and Pune, between this particular belt. Many automobile organizations and many industrial organizations, they started coming in between this particular Mumbai and Pune. So most of these particular organizations between in this particular industrial corridor called Greater Mumbai and Thane corridor, they happen to deliver a higher wage and fringe package that did the helped the employees. So the labor unions were successful. So when we look at the second phase, first phase, was what somewhat, you know, first phase we had this patriotic feelings running around. Second phase, we had the wars at that particular time. But when we look at the trade unionism, government started implementing workers' participation in management through joint management councils, works committees, and all. And most of the labor unions also used collective bargaining as a tool to fulfill their demands. And in the third phase of the counseling, this was the most turbulent time because India has seen one of the largest strikes back in South India. The giant public sector organizations like HMT, HAL, ECI, ITI, they called for an indefinite strike. And this particular strike spilled into the western part of India, in Mumbai also. So there the labor strike and the textile industry went on almost for 2 years from 81 to 83. Towards the end of this particular period, end of the third phase period, we started moving from being in the socialistic era, we started moving towards, this particular globalization. So phase one, phase two, phase three were in the nationalist era because everything was being owned and controlled by the government. We started following the footsteps of Russia. But so by the time 1990 came, Russia, which was previously called as USSR, okay, so this USSR disintegrated into Commonwealth of Independent States and Russia. At the same time, we entered into the fourth phase of unionism, 1992 2000. Around this particular time, multinational organizations started coming into the Indian sector. So when multinational organizations started coming into the Indian sector, it had the positive side as well as the negative side. The positive side is they have created a lot of employment opportunities, and we had an effective union voice at both the micro and macro level, right? And on the negative side, they proposed certain reforms which were not implemented, right? They wanted certain reforms because there is a steady decline in the power of the organized unions. So after 1990s, the power of the trade unions started decreasing steadily. And after 2000, by the time we came to the 2000, it's not that we don't have any trade unions now. We still have trade unions, but we don't have, I mean, trade unions do not have this particular, right? Okay, so it's like as if you're taking the fangs of King Cobra. King Cobra or Cobra as a snake is very dangerous as long as it has got the fang, because in those particular fang only will have the poison. But when you remove this particular fangs, even if it is going to bite, you will not die because the poison has been removed. The same is the situation of our trade unions also. Till 1990, these particular unions were very powerful. These particular unions were very strong. They were very militant in nature. After 1990, when the multinational organizations started coming in, things started taking a different shape. Right now, even though trade unions exist, they did not have the same power which they had in the past. Right. So that's what we happened. After 2000, what happened in this particular trade union is, especially after Narendra Modi became our prime minister, he has passed certain changes into this particular trade union act. He wanted to make certain changes into this particular trade union, and most of these particular changes are not welcomed by the industry, because most of them thought these particular trade union changes which Narendra Modi government is proposing will benefit the employer. It will benefit the employer, but it is going to harm the employee. It is going to harm the labor. Let us see what are these particular benefits. Previously, as per the 1926 Factories Act, okay, any seven people can form a union. If you have seven people coming together, you can form a trade union. Now the government has proposed an industrial relations code of 2017. The government proposed a change. It said 10% of workers are needed to form a trade union, and the minimum number, the 10% minimum number should be 100. Below 100 people, you can't form a trade union. To form a trade union, you need at least 100 people, which means to say micro level organizations, okay, small and medium enterprises, no, they may not have this particular number. And if they don't have this particular number, they can't form a union there. And if they're not forming a union, who is going to speak on their behalf? It's like you're taking away their voice. So now that's the problem, right? So far, this particular change has been included in the membership and the composition of the trade. Similarly, with regarding to strike also, whenever they did not like the government decision, they used to strike, right? And those days, since Congress was in power, this Sangh Parivar and then this Janasangh people, these are the people who used to strike at every every turn. Now things started changing. Now BJP, Narendra Modi government says if you want to have a strike, 14 days before you have to give notice. Suddenly you can't take a decision in 3 or 4 days and then let's go call for a strike. No, it doesn't happen. In order to do a strike, you'll have to give 14 months distance. So today, if you are having strike, next strike within 2 months you should not have. Only after the third month only it is possible. Correct. Similarly, during certain times, say you are going on a strike, and then the management said, okay, since you are going on a strike, okay, they'll call this particular trade union people. You come, we'll negotiate. So when the negotiation is going on, you should not have any strike. Banning strikes during the pendency of the conciliation process. And if you are going to break any of these rules, rule number 1, without notice, if you go on a strike, right? And then rule number 2, when this particular conciliation process is going on, then if you start a strike, you'll have to pay a fine of 50,000 rupees plus 1 month in jail, right? And as per the Employment Act, Indian Employment Labor Act, what we have got, if any person spends more than 24 hours in prison, if any government employee spends more than 24 hours in prison, he will lose his job. So if they are going to participate in strike, and then if they are being violated, right, then what happens? They'll have a fine. At the same time, 1 month in prison, they'll be losing their jobs also. Right? So that's one thing. Next, this is the one thing which everybody accepted. Now government proposed bringing all of them into a single social security. Today we have separate PF. Today we have separate gratuity. All right, we have got separate ESI like this. So instead of this particular separate PF, separate gratuity, separate ESI, separate pension and other medical benefits, the government started saying, let us have a common law. Point number 1. Second thing, all these particular laws are applicable only for the regular employed employees, for the government employees. In the unorganized sector, in the private sector, they don't have this particular thing. Now, government wanted to propose even in the private sector also, even in the unorganized sector also, it can be something like a construction sector, right, or something like that. Okay, even in those particular unorganized sector also, they have to provide social security. So this is one good thing which the government happened to propose. And they changed this particular definition of factory, right? So previously, if 20 people are combining together, right, with power, it's called as a factory. Without power, less than 20 people. Now they have brought this particular membership number to 40 workers. Okay. So this is one particular change that the government has proposed. Among all these particular changes, the major disturbances have been in this has not been accepted. Membership and composition of trade unions was not acceptable to many people, and even RSS proposed, this particular trade union, Hindustan Mazdoor Sangh, HMS, similarly BMS, Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh. So this Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh or Hindustan Mazdoor Sangh, these people also did not accept the proposed change by Narendra Modi government on ban on strikes. So the next topic we have in the syllabus is industrialization and development of labor economy. So when we look at the how industrialization happened to shape up an economy, because of industrialization, how we are trying to build an economy, that we have to understand. All right. End of the day, if industrialization is happening, it is happening because of labor. Point number 1. Second thing, because of industrialization during that particular time, between the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, during that particular time, we happen to see a rise in the quality of work life, rise in the standard of living. People who are employed in these factories, they had very good standard of living. People who are not employed in the government-owned factories, they were living in poverty. Why? In government-owned factories like Hindustan Machine Tools (HMT), or else Indian Railways, or else BHEL, NMDC, any number of these organizations, government was taking care of their statutory and non-statutory. So government, as a part of non-statutory, government constructed homes for them. Government started providing education for their particular children, community hall for marriage functions and other functions and all, and subsidized canteens where they can buy their monthly groceries and everything. Even the current bill in this quarters is subsidized for employees, government employees, any organization, not just Indian Railway, any organization, subsidized power, even including Vizag Steel Plant also. So every need of the employee is being met by the government. So what happened is the standard of living and the quality of life drastically increased for those particular people who are under government, who are having a government job. And those particular people who are working in the private sector, nothing has changed. Nothing much has changed. Even today, recently I told you the example also. Right? A lecturer, say a person who has joined us uh, in intermediate college or else in a degree college, he joins in a private degree college, he joins as a lecturer, he will start his salary with 6,000 rupees or 8,000 rupees. Same degree college lecturer in PR government college or RRPHR government college, the starting salary will be 38,000 rupees. Okay. So similarly, Mohan Degree College principal, if you take, Mohan Degree College principal will be earning like 15,000 or 16,000 rupees. Right. And the government degree college principal will be earning 1,70,000 or 1,80,000 per month. Now, where is the comparison? Where is this 15,000? Where is that particular 1,17,000 or 1 lakh? That 15,000 rupees will be paying rent only. A government employee who is working in RRBHR or who is working in PR government college, that fellow's home rent comes to 15,000, which is equal to the salary in the private sector. So we have got huge imbalance. No? In terms of this particular salaries, huge imbalance. Now, that's the reason we have got huge praise for this particular government jobs and government organizations. Even today also nothing has changed. In spite of, at least in the urban India, we have got multinational companies to take care of them. Rural India, we don't have multinational companies. Right? We don't have multinational company in Pittapuram, Gollapurlu, and nearby Kakinada. So what is our only source of improving our standard of life? Government job. There's no other opportunity, isn't it? So looking at that from that particular point of view, this industrialization happened to improve our country. How industrialization happened to improve our country? That's what we are going to see. First thing that industrialization has done is it has increased our per capita income. Okay. So what it has done, it has increased the per capita income. So when per capita income has increased, obviously people started moving towards luxuries. So since per capita income has increased, what has happened today? What was necessity became a comfort, right? Okay, sorry. What was luxury became a comfort, and what was comfort became a necessity. Previously, having a two-wheeler is a comfort, but today, two-wheeler is a necessity. Previously, having a car is a luxury, but today, having a car is a comfort, right? Similarly, having an air conditioner was a luxury, but today, air conditioner has become a necessity, right? So, why this particular changes happen? These changes happen because of the raise in the per capita income. People are having money to buy. Since people are having money to buy, the standard of living has drastically improved, drastically increased. So that's the reason 1980s, when you go to villages and all, we happen to find this particular, thatched houses. Thatched houses made of this particular coconut leaf or palm tree leaf. We used to have this particular houses being built. Hut. We used to call it as a hut. Huts being built. Today, in any village, including SC colonies in the village, including the SC colonies also, you will not find any hut or you will not find any of this thatched houses. Everywhere it is only a pakka house, including the SC colonies. Okay, so there is all these things are happening because of the raise in the per capita income. The second thing, we have seen a huge growth. This industrialization led to the growth in international labor. we started exporting what we have to the other countries. From other countries we started getting, right? Okay, previously whatever products today are available, in order to avail these products, these rich people and all, they used to have maintain their own farmhouses. Like today we have farmhouses for celebrities in Bombay, Hyderabad and other places. They used to have in other countries. So that has changed. Now we have got less than 1 minute time. This class is going to end here. We will continue from growth in international trade in the next class on Monday.